Cool. Okay, let's get this show on the road then, guys. So let me just share my screen with you now. Got the right one. There we go. Okay. Oh, no, not quite. There we go. So, yes, so tonight's training, guys. So, yeah, that's what we've talked about already on the call. We're going to do like a little 3-part series on a guide to healthy sleep. So, what we'll be focusing on tonight is, like I've already said to you guys who are here, we're going to be focusing on the science of sleep. So the why we sleep, the benefits of it, you know, the functions, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, a bit of sciencey talk tonight, giving you a bit of a general overview, and then in the next 2 parts we'll delve a bit deeper and give you some practical tips you can take away. So yeah, the guide, the key objectives to tonight's training is to provide you with a bit of an introduction to sleep and its purpose. So we'll discuss why we sleep. We'll also look at the different stages of sleep and what they mean for you know, us in terms of recovery and all stuff like that. You know, I'll talk you through actually what makes us sleep, so what brings it on. And then we'll look at Cacadian rhythm, so and its effect on sleep, and then what a natural rhythm might look like for you. Okay. So yeah, I found this quote earlier and I absolutely love it. Like I said, I think it hits the nail on the head, really. So yeah, without sleep, we all become tall 2-year-olds. So, and it just sums up in a nutshell, we do become like toddlers. So, you know, our cognitive abilities, our decision-making process goes completely out the window. We're not rational. We have mood swings and we want to eat all the sweets and the cake and chocolate and all those sort of things. And we never want to go to bed. We want to stay up as late as possible. So yeah, if you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to affect your behavior day to day massively. Okay, so kicking off with a bit of an intro to sleep. So like I said to you guys earlier, we coaches, we bang on about sleep all the time, how it's so good for you, how you should get enough of it. But as you can see from the first bullet point here, that too many people are still not getting the amount of sleep. And that's sort of to do with what our lifestyles like these days. You know, the boundaries between work and our, you know, personal life have gone a bit, and especially in the last 18 months with COVID, where we're working from home. So that, like, you know, where you used to leave the office at the end of the day and you switch off your desk, your computer, you log out and that's you done. Unfortunately, now with emails, phones, and like I say, working from home, those boundaries are gone. So we're hearing, like, I know when we first went into lockdown, I was speaking to some of my clients and they were working like God knows how many hours a day just because they couldn't step away from the computer because it was so easily to access it. So yeah, so we're seeing this more and more now. So as you can see there, so yeah, 10 to 30%, and this is of the world's population, people suffer from some form of sleep disorder, and as much as 75% get insufficient sleep. So yes, sleep is the foundation of health, really. So if you're getting good sleep, then everything else benefits. But like you see here, not many of us are getting enough to help support us. So and why do we care? So sleep is one of the most powerful performance enhancing tools. So I got to see a study from Stanford University. So they got their men's basketball team to go into what was called a sleep extension study. So they were sleeping for 10 hours a night, which sounds like a lot, and it is. But what they found was their free throwing percentage, and you see here, increased by 11%. So that just shows you there, by just getting, you know, a good amount of sleep, you're going to be able to perform better with your training as well. Oh, here comes the Irishman now. He's joining us. Don't know what that picture is. Okay, carrying on. So yeah, overall, so like I said earlier, sleep is the foundation of health. So if you're getting good sleep, you're gonna, you know, overall be healthier, have more stress resilience. You're going to be more resistant to disease, and you know, your quality of life is going to be all the better for it. Welcome, Greg.
I thought it was 7:30.
Never mind. I'll let you off.
Sorry.
That's right. We're just getting into it now, so I haven't gone too far in it yet. So you're going to come and back me up in a minute with the science and the biochemistry stuff. Okay, and then yeah, so like I said, like, you know, when we don't sleep very well, basically everything just goes out of balance. So a few of the key points here, like I say, which we'll go into more detail later, is, you know, it's decreased hormone production and neurotransmitter production, increased inflammation, and then sort of poor optimization of the food we're getting you know, from our diet then. So yeah, sleep, like I say, if we're just not sleeping, it's going to have a little bit of an impact on a bit of everything. So it's essential really that we get enough of it. So yeah, why do we sleep? So as I've said many times on that previous slide, sleep is vital for health and it's necessary for survival. So a bit like what I said with the aerobic, the pathway last week. If if I said hold your breath and see how long you last. Again, don't do that. It's just an extreme example, but it's the same with sleep. If we don't sleep, it's going to have a lot of negative consequences, and eventually it could result in death potentially. So it's just because an accumulation of things. It won't happen instantly. It's a bit of a thing over time, and there's many parts to it. It's not just sleep on its own, but if we're not sleeping properly, we can't recover physically. Our immune system weakens, and you also enter in this stage of sort of confusion and brain fog. I remember reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and he talked about one of the biggest things with like sort of road and traffic collisions is lack of sleep. It's actually not drink like a lot of people think a lot of road accidents will probably be from drink driving, but yeah, it was actually lack of sleep which caused the most accidents on the road and therefore the most fatalities. You've read that book, haven't you, Greg? Why We
Yeah,
Sleep.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's quite eye-opening actually. No
yeah,
pun
it's a bit of a, I don't know what you think. It's a bit of a hard read, but very lots of information, very insightful. So yeah, if anyone's interested in it more, Why We Sleep is a very good book. And yeah, so again, why do we sleep? It sort of rejuvenates the body and mind. So there's a few theories on why we sleep, two of them being the information consolidation theory and the restorative theory. Try saying those really quickly, it's really difficult. Which we'll touch on those in a moment, just to give you the key points of what those theories are. And again, getting enough sleep helps protect you, from disease and just set you up for a long, high quality life. So yeah, some of the things, having good sleep has been linked with is a reduced risk of obesity and some other chronic diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, those sort of things. So yeah, it's like, again, get good sleep. Overall health is going to be a lot better. Yeah, so the first of those theories was the information consolidation theory. And this basically just suggests that we sleep in order to sort of process information and sort of embed any motor skills we've required during the day. So like, I don't know, some new exercises you may have tried at the gym or something new you might have learned that day. When we're sleeping, that's the sort of time where the brain is sort of processing that stuff and just embedding it. So, it's there for future use sort of thing. And then, yeah, so that just helps to then get stored in our long-term memory. And then, if we're not getting, if we're getting fragmented sleep, like Sue mentioned earlier, where she wakes up at 2 a.m, then she can't get back off, or Elaine mentioned she can sleep, but it's probably not sufficient. If that can impair your ability to form these sort of long-term memories and those sort of those things that we've learned. Anything you want to add there, Greg?
Yeah, it's funny when we talk about sleep and creating new memories or creating new theories. There's a theory now that as we actually grow into older age, we don't need as much sleep, and it's a tribal mentality thing. So when, in particular, you'll find it in females. So as they get older, they actually need less sleep to do the same tasks, and that's because as a tribal community, you don't want to actually create new theories older in age and pass it down. You want to consolidate all the things that you've actually learned in your lifetime and pass them on and not create new ones. But it just I guess solidifies Zoe's point that if you want to evolve in terms of your thought process, in terms of learning new things, it's super important for sleep, because if anyone who's been to university knows the idea of cramming, and actually the effectiveness of that might be actually really low if we don't get sleep the night before an exam.
Yeah, because it almost seems like counterintuitive, really. Like you got the exam the next day, you want to spend the whole night awake trying to study, but like Greg says, it doesn't then sink in. So yeah, you just sort of shoot yourself in the foot then. So yeah, moving on to the next one. The other theory was the restorative one, and this is based on the understanding that sleep provides us with an opportunity to basically repair and rejuvenate ourselves. So during sleep, this is where the brain clears any metabolic waste products which is built up through the day, which is basically like the anatomical version of taking out the trash. And then, yeah, so the brain is restored during sleep. You wake up with a clearer mind, ready to approach new challenges. You'll know if you're not getting adequate sleep, you'll feel the complete opposite way, where, you know, you still, like I said earlier, you get that brain fog and maybe you're not quite ready to try anything new that day. So, and yeah, so it's just like say, it's just a case of just time. It's a good time for repair as well. So you find that protein synthesis is elevated during sleep as well. Growth hormone is amplified. Greg, you're probably better explaining that sort of stuff than me. What benefit would that be to getting good amount of sleep and then having those things increase?
Well, if you look at sleep quality and sleep duration in terms of just repeated performance, like especially with what the phase we just went through was quite an intense one. When you find studies on athletic performance and sleep deprivation, it normally shows that repeated efforts day after day become harder and harder the more you constrict sleep time. So when it talks about protein synthesis, that is generally DNA repair. It looks at muscle repair, and the release of growth hormone obviously does a lot of those things as well, but it's also quite important for fat loss. So when sleep isn't just, when we talk about fat loss and sleep isn't just time away from food. There's much more to that. Like I'm sure she'll get into it later as we go through, but actually the regulation of appetite, the regulation of your response to stress. So we talk about repair, it's also the reduction in stress for the vast majority of people, which people seem to ignore. Like I said, it's almost like a badge of honor now, right? To get less sleep and to get more work done. But realistically, how good is that quality of work? How good is your training if you don't get the sleep, the repair that you get from it?
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Like yeah, it's like see people bragging as like, oh, I only got like 4 hours sleep last night, and it's like, that's not a good thing. So yeah, really, it should be the other way. We should go, oh, I got 8 hours last night. That's fantastic. And then I'm going to train really hard today, or I'm going to stick to my targets today, or whatever it might be. So yeah, like, so what Greg was talking then about like sleep and appetite, we'll probably go through in the next series next week, guys, where we're going to delve really a lot deeper into the science. So we'll talk about the effects on hormones and ghrelin and leptin and all those sort of things. And yeah, so it's necessary for metabolic health. So, you know, your bioactivity, the thyroid hormone, which helps regulate metabolism, insulin sensitivity, glucose tolerance, all those sort of things. And then it also affects, or positively affects endocrine processes. So, you know, allowing appropriate release of, you know, cortisol and sex hormones and that sort of thing. So again, it's just, if you get good sleep, it has a positive effect on most things which are going on in the body, those sort of daily processes.
Yeah, like just to add to that, like, so when she talks about when Zoe mentioned about like the proper release of sex hormones, if you want to get, if you're a guy and you want to get prescribed testosterone, the best way to go to your doctor would be to absolutely crash the amount of sleep you do and eat a high carbohydrate diet. And generally speaking, over 2 and 3 days, you could come in and be hypo and come across as hypogonadism, so really low testosterone. That's how much effect sleep actually has on the endocrine system. You can crash testosterone to the extent where they think, where you can get tested and come across as literally having no testosterone. So it is a huge factor.
And then, so just looking on some more practical stuff now. So how much, you know, sort of sleep is enough? So it does vary from person to person, and as you know, we've sort of briefly touched on there, it can depend on what stage of life you're in as well. So like as adolescents will need a lot more sleep as opposed to, you know, someone who's like an elderly person in their 70s sort of thing. So it can vary. Obviously, the recommendations for adults is 7 to 9 hours per night, which based on the call so far, when we were having a little chat earlier, not many people are getting here, myself included in that one. And yeah, but, you know, research does suggest, like, you know, the more that we can get, the better. So some studies have shown that, you know, in terms of like physical and cognitive performance, you know, up to 10 hours per night, you can see some really big improvements, like 10 to 15%. So, but yeah, 10, if you're not getting even 7 to 9, don't worry about trying to get 10. Sort of build yourself up gradually and try and get yourself up to that minimum threshold. I don't know. Do you know anyone who gets that 10 hours of sleep on average, Greg?
No,
No, I
no.
don't either.
I haven't met anyone in the Western world yet who gets 10 hours of sleep a night.
7 hours of sleep. Okay, and then so what we're going to talk on now is like sort of about the stages of sleep. So there's sort of two main stages. So you've got REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. And then you've got non-REM sleeps, or it's sometimes known as slow wave, or if you've got like a fitness tracker, it might say light sleep and deep sleep. So yeah, there's various little stages that we go through, and it's sort of cycles. They can last anywhere between like 1 to 2 hours on average. Then you sort of transition in 90-minute cycles. And one of the big ones is obviously REM sleep. Guys have probably heard that term before. And this is where sort of those repair processes go on. So yeah, we're building tissue. That's where that growth hormone's released. We're boosting our immune system, clearing away that irrelevant information, clearing the mind, and strengthening those memories. So that's where it's physical and cognitive stuff going on there. And then, yeah, like I said just then, when we sleep, we do cycle through different stages of non-REM and REM sleep. And what tends to happen is the further we go through the night, that the length of REM sleep tends to increase as we sort of progress through to the morning then. So I'm just going to touch on each of the stages just to show you some like what the key things are each one, or like what where you're at in terms of like the sleep, because we're not present when we're sleeping. So yeah, let's give you an overview of what that process is actually like. So yeah, stage 1, so non-REM sleep. This is the sort of the transition from being awake to falling asleep. So sort of during this phase, body loses a bit of muscle tone, so it starts to relax, and there's a loss of self-awareness. So that little stage where you feel yourself drifting, you're in the room, but you're not quite in the room. So that little switching off. Yeah, during this point as well, sort of our breathing, our heart rate, and our eye movements tend to slow down, and so do our brain waves as well. So it's just the body just chilling out, starting to relax a little bit now. And then you have stage 2, which again is non-REM sleep. But at this point, then our body temperature starts to drop again. Eye movements become much more reduced or slower. Brain wave activity keeps coming down. But you still get little brief bursts of electrical activity. And this is the sort of stage we tend to spend a little bit more time in. So when we cycle through these different stages, this is the one we'll come back to most times compared to some of the others. And then stage 3, so this is the sort of the deep sleep stage, which getting adequate amounts of this is what leaves us feeling a bit more refreshed in the morning. With this deep sleep tends to happen more in the first half of the night, and then the second half of the night is more about sort of REM sleep, or ideally should be anyway. And again, the muscles relax a little bit more, and this stage of deep sleep, this is where you're in that point where it's really difficult to be woken up. So you're right down in there now. Again, brainwaves slow down, and this is where sort of some of those repair and rejuvenation processes start to come in now. So this is where growth hormone starts getting released at this point in the night. And then the final one then is REM sleep. So it usually occurs around 90 minutes after falling asleep, so after the first sleep cycle. Ideally, not always the case. Like I track my sleep quite often, and I sometimes only get like 10 minutes of REM sleep a night, so mine's not kicking in the first 90 minutes. But that's another chat for another day. But yeah, this is the sort of, you'll know REM sleep because this is the stage where we start to dream. And when we dream, it gives the brain a little bit of energy. And that's where we do these sort of embedding processes. So this is where the sort of long-term memory comes in, embedding those motor skills and, anything we've learned during the day. So yes, the next point there is the brain regions that are used in learning, they're stimulated at this point. So yeah, if you're trying to retain more information, like Greg said earlier, like improve your mind, that sort of thing, this is an essential part to embedding any information you've gathered during the day. Adversely, so the other way around here, so our breathing tends to ramp up a little bit, so it comes a little bit faster, a little bit irregular at this point. Our heart rate increases, our blood pressure increases, and sort of closer to more towards where it's at when we're awake. And sounds scary, but don't worry, it's for your own safety. Our muscles of the arms and legs they become temporarily paralyzed, and this is just to prevent you some sort of reacting, moving in your sleep, acting out your dreams, that sort of thing. So it just keeps you still. Anything I've missed out, Greg? Because that sort of summarize it all there.
No, it's pretty spot on, bud.
Cool. So yeah, what makes us sleep? So, eventually, the feeling, the day's going on, and you just, your eyelids getting heavier, you're getting tired, you're not moving around as much. So eventually you get this sort of overwhelming sensation that I need to go to sleep now. And this is sort of due to the biochemical factors. So, Greg, do you want to talk about adenosine and melatonin for me?
Yeah, so adenosine is a byproduct of ATP. So ATP is the energy currency of the body. So when we eat food, we create what's called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. So adenosine is an element of that, but you get accumulation of it in the brain as the day goes on, and it lowers attention, it lowers tone, and it makes us tired as the day goes on. So like how coffee works against that is it actually blocks those receptors in the brain. So the idea is it's almost like sleep debt. So eventually that adenosine builds up in your brain, making you tired, you fall asleep, and then your brain throughout the night actually digs that out and clears it, ready to be alert the next day. So that's what happens throughout the day and how we build up tiredness and eventually fall asleep. The release of melatonin is a hormone released from your pineal gland. It doesn't necessarily make you fall asleep, but what it does is it brings on the feeling of tiredness and puts you into a state of wanting to go to sleep. It is very responsive to light. So this is where we see major issues in regards to a lot of our clients, and Zoe always talks about it with her clients because I hear her talking about being in front of blue light and how this actually delays the onset of melatonin and therefore sleep. So when you're in front of blue light, it works in the same way as sunlight does. So televisions, laptops, phones, and therefore we always say like we need an hour away from these things before we actually go to sleep. So that's what happens in terms of why or what actually comes along and makes us sleep. But the major thing you need to understand is in regards to these things is our general lifestyle in the Western world has made us not respond to a lot of these things. So too much caffeine throughout the day will block the receptors for adenosine, therefore won't make us tired. The screens that we're in front of all the time simulates light, and therefore we don't release melatonin. So these are the factors that we seem to come across from a day-to-day issue and why people can't. So we're not talking about won't sleep, so those who want to stay up late, but we're talking about those people who struggle to sleep. You can take every supplement, but until you deal with a lot of these issues, you won't seem to come up with any real solution for it.
Yeah, I think one of the the issues there is like it sounds so basic, like just trying to do these things to get more sleep, and because it's not like sexy, it's not exciting. It's people just like don't buy into it as much. Where you see some supplement companies and you're like, take this to help you sleep, and people are like, take my money, I want it. So yeah, it's like you don't have to do anything too fancy, guys. It's very simple stuff. Like I've talked about the 10-3-2-1 method in the past. So like Greg mentioned there, an hour before you sleep, turn off all electronics, so you start get yourself away from that blue light, start bringing on that release of melatonin. Not eating too close to bed, that can delay the onset of sleep as well, or maybe affect the quality of sleep because your body's having to try and digest food and trying to fall asleep at the same time. Shutting off from work a few hours before bed though, as well, just again, so you can start unwinding, relaxing, taking your mind away from the office, those sort of things. And then yeah, caffeine, not too close to bedtime. So like caffeine has a half-life, I think of like is 18 hours, or was it, or 9 hours?
It's 8 or 9 hours, I can't remember.
Yeah, and that's a half-life. So you're having your coffee in the morning, it takes 9 hours to get half of that caffeine that you're getting from the coffees out of your system. So yeah, like 10 hours before bed, you want to stop drinking coffee. And I say that, I'm guilty of it myself, especially when we're doing a split shift in the gym. I just psychologically, I want a coffee in my hand when I go back in for 4:30. so I'm guilty of it myself. So it's something I'm working on. But yeah, like trying to cut out caffeine in the early in the day. So again, just so it doesn't block those adenosine receptors, so it can just allow those natural things to occur. So yeah, sometimes we just sort of shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit with some of our behaviors, and it's just things we've done over time. So sometimes they're hard to eradicate or improve, but yeah, it's just consistency and just keep practicing it. Okay, I can't see the title of this. Oh yes, the Cacadian River. So yeah, your Cacadian rhythm, guys, is a bit like your sort of biological clock. And this is sort of influenced by three main things, which we've touched on throughout the call. So it's, light, time, and hormones as well. So we touched on hormones with the, adenosine and the melatonin, that sort of stuff. We talked about light exposure, and yeah, light is one of the master regulators of our, sort of internal clock. So our sort of master clock is in the brain, and this controls this daily rhythm. And studies show that if we in some way anchor our exposure to lights, it will help keep that in sort of tune, really. So yeah, getting out early into the natural light early in the day is great for bringing you out of that stage of sleep, because there's something to do with the receptors in the eyes. The light from the sun hits it, and then it's telling your brain, okay, it's light now, so we got to start waking up. So you get out of that sort of foggy feeling a little bit quicker, like say you feel a little bit more energized, and then that just sort of kicks sort of everything off that day then. And of course then later in the day, trying to get yourself in darkness as much as possible. So like not having the main lights on, having like I don't know, lamps would be a little bit of an option. They're still not great, they still delay things a little bit, but yeah, so trying to create darkness, and then that again stimulates our release of melatonin at night when we're looking to try and wind down and bring on that sleep. And yeah, and like we said already, exposure to bright lights in the evening, that impairs the brain's ability to release melatonin, and it alters our rhythm. So yeah, computer screens, phones, televisions, all that sort of stuff, it just delays us going to sleep. So if we can sort of work on getting ourselves away from those things earlier in the evening, that should help improve, one, falling asleep, and two, the quality of sleep. It's not going to happen straight away. It is something you need to sort of work on, practice, and be consistent with. And then sort of, what does a natural rhythm look like? There's probably not any one rhythm. Everyone is different. But you do have these sort of chronotypes. So you have like your morning people and your night owls. So people who prefer being in bed early, up early. People who prefer being up late, working a little bit later. And like we touched on, this can change through life. So childhood, like I don't know, children. I don't know because I don't have kids. Stereotypically, they tend to be up early in the morning. I don't know, what's your baby like in the morning, Greg? What time does he wake up?
Well, I think he's at that stage now where he's just nocturnal.
So yeah, so your sleep's been impacted then as a result of that.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so you go, and then you sort of adolescents. They tend to sleep for a lot more. Can you remember how many hours they say in Why We Sleep? How many hours teenagers should get?
It's up towards the 12 end, isn't it?
Yeah, like 12, 13 hours or something like that. And like they will actually, they turn into night owls during adolescence, so they need a lot of sleep, which means they generally tend to naturally wake up later in the day. And then we're asking them to go to school at like 8, 9 in the morning, which is completely the wrong time for them because the way their sort of brain works. And then we're asking them to learn and try and do all these things, and their rhythm is all wrong. So yeah, so again, just going back to our society and the way things are, we sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot with how we set things up, and it means we can't get all the benefits then of working with our cycles and getting those adequate sleep. And then yeah, in the sort of the later years in life, then as Greg touched on earlier, you potentially don't need as much sleep for all these various reasons that you mentioned. But just because you are a certain type of person doesn't mean you're stuck being a morning person or a night owl. There are, like we've talked about, there are things you can work on to sort of shift how that works, because we're not all so lucky to be able to say with work especially, like, oh, I'm a bit of a night owl, so I'm going to come in at 12 o'clock because that suits me better, or I'm going to come in at 6 a.m. because I'll get more done in the morning. you know, I'm not a morning person at all, so I don't know why I picked a career as a personal trainer, because it kills me when the alarm goes off at like 4 or 5 in the morning. But, you know, yeah, so there's things I'm trying to work on to make, you know, to put myself in a better position and actually, you know, perform better at work, and then in other aspects of life as well. So yes, you know, there are habits you can adopt to help you adjust to these sort of natural tendencies that we may have. So yeah, there's no actually one perfect rhythm. It is largely individual.
Another thing to understand when you talk about circadian rhythms, the body's so many different factors work on a circadian rhythm. So in terms of detoxification pathways, immune system, all these things work in particular circadian rhythms. So don't quote me on this, but between 1 and 3, the liver detoxifies. Between 3 and 5, the lungs detoxify. If you're awake during those periods of time, you're massively impairing general health. And I used to work nights. I remember exactly how it was. But understanding these factors, there is a reason why shift workers tend to have a much shorter lifespan than those of us who sleep at desired hours. And unfortunately, with something like a circadian rhythm, it's very, very, very hard to change long term. Dramatically is what I mean. So turning from, you can, if you move over time zones, it can take up to 3 years to reset circadian rhythms to the new light exposure. So it is a massive, massive factor. And when we talk about sleep, like Zoe talks about, look, PTs, we're no better. We know better, which almost makes us worse. But in terms of hitting goals or planning long term or making the right executive decision is based around how stressed you are. So if we don't sleep enough, we're priming ourselves for stress. So when we're stressed, we can't plan ahead. We will do whatever it takes to get us out of pain now. It puts us in the moment in a very bad way. So when you don't sleep, you seek out excess calories throughout the day. And secondly, you try and chase those calories for instant gratification or instant satisfaction. So it tends to be a combination of carbohydrates and fats. So it's not just, I don't sleep, therefore I don't feel very well. It has a knock-on effect to every single aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. So I know Stacey's on and we've had chats about sleep before. And I understand the stages where you don't have the time to sleep because of work deadlines. But for a lot of us, there is times where we just neglect it.
Yeah, and that's like coming back to that quote I said earlier, guys, like, yeah, if you don't get sleep, you're going to behave like a tall 2-year-old. So yeah, your decision making, or your behaviors, it's all going to go to pot.
If you want a more extreme one, I remember going to a seminar in Manchester before, and a lady put her hand up when they were talking about sleep and said, "Oh, my husband is a police officer and he only works nights. What should I do?" And his response was, this was Luke Lehman, get health insurance or get life insurance.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that coming up before. Yeah.
Yeah, get life insurance because it's that serious.
I think Martin McDonald as well, when we went to that one. I'm pretty sure, like, I think someone meant he talked about night shift workers or something like that, and he's like, "What should you do?" And he went, "Quit your job."
Quit your job.
Yeah. If you want a healthy life, go to shift work, basically.
Anybody here work shift work? Which Sue is it?
Sue Bibby, I think. Yeah.
Oh, Sue Bibby, damn Sue. I know you work nights sometimes.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much all the key stuff I wanted to go through today. So yeah, just a little summary, guys, just so some of the things we've gone over. So yeah, getting good quality, healthy sleep allows you to sort of reach your true potential. So that's sort of the things we mentioned earlier, you know, improve cognitive function, improve performance, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you're not getting good sleep, you're potentially leaving, you know, a few things in the tank. So yeah, get good sleep and you'll find you'll be able to do much better with most aspects of life or whatever you're trying to achieve. You know, whether your goals like putting on muscle, fat loss, or just generally living a healthier life. Yeah, so it's vital for health, necessary for survival. Without it, we won't last very long. There are 2 types of sleep, which we touched on earlier. You've got your REM sleep and your non-REM sleep, and that your biological clock is influenced by light, time, and hormones. And yeah, and that there are habits we can adopt to adjust our natural tendencies to make sure we're getting better quality sleep. Okay, so that's pretty, like I say, that's everything I want to go through. Anything you want to add there, Greg, before we open it up?
No, crack on. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, so guys, unmute yourselves, pop in the chat, whatever you want to do. Any questions, chuck them our way and we'll go through them now. So I'll look at the chat. Oh, Elaine, I drink coffee before bed. Yeah, she said that earlier. So I don't know, what's your sort of take on that, Greg? Because like I seen your comment there, like some people have a good ability to clear it.
That's a particular genotype. So some people have an amazing capacity at clearing caffeine and can get away with it. So you have some people who can have an espresso before they go to bed. It depends, Elaine, if you are that person, like if you do struggle with sleep. But for the vast majority of people, I wouldn't really be looking at drinking coffee before bed. No.
I know. I actually have to set a reminder on my phone to say stop drinking coffee. Otherwise, I will just keep going. So I've gone the other way now. I'd sort of load up my morning with coffee before 1 o'clock.
I think I load my day up with coffee. I drink too much coffee. I do. I know that. But I can also not drink it and I don't get a headache. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I know quite a lot of people who, when they don't drink it, they do have a headache. So
headaches would be some form of withdrawal usually.
Yeah, I don't get that. So if I stop drinking it and I don't drink it at all for a week, I don't seem to have any side effects. But I will try not to drink coffee before bed.
I would definitely try and avoid it before bed, I think.
Yeah, don't have a coffee at 9 o'clock and then try and go to sleep. Like
I'm worse than that. So we'd probably have one about 11:30.
You have it next to the bed, do you, for when you go to sleep?
I have one before I go up. Yeah, I have on occasions had coffee in bed. Yes, I can confess to that.
So that's probably just more of a habit thing. So maybe try switching to decaf so you can still have it.
Yeah.
There are still, I think, trace elements of caffeine in decaf. So it's still not perfect, but when we're looking to if it is a habit that you need to have, your coffee before you go to bed, it's just a case of trying to, rather than just cut it out completely, sometimes the better option would be for a better alternative. So maybe try switching to decaf and seeing if that helps. Just because like sometimes it's purely psychological. Like I said earlier, when I go back into the gym in the afternoon, I probably don't need the caffeine, but in my head I tell myself I need the caffeine to get through work, so therefore I have the coffee. So sometimes we convince ourselves that we need something.
Have you got any tips on sort of, I'm a night person, so if I got something difficult to do, I would leave it till evening to do, because I concentrate better, I just work better at night. So anything that's hard, I will do in the evening. So even if it's work stuff, I'll put it off and I'll do it in the evening because that's better for me. Life makes me be a morning person because I have to get up and I have to get on with stuff and get stuff done before the kids get up. But I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person and I want to stay being a night person, but I can't. Any tips on how you make yourself? I can't make myself go to bed. That's basically it. I can't make myself go to bed.
It's like between a rock and a hard place there.
Yeah,
that's a difficult one. Have you looked at any methods of relaxing in the evening, or is relaxing for you time in front of the television?
Mostly time in front of a television, but only probably for about maybe an hour and a half, something like that. So not like a whole evening of sitting in front of a television. So I probably wouldn't sit down in an evening until about 9:30, and then I'd probably watch an hour and a half of television then.
And then what time are you up in the morning?
Anytime between 5:45 and about 6:30. Depending on whether I'm coming to the gym for 6 o'clock or not.
Yeah. So I'm crap at maths. How much sleep is that? How many hours is that usually?
I normally get 6 or just shy of 6.
So you're not too far off where you need to be really. Like say the recommended is that 7 to 9. So it's just a case of if life dictates you need to be up at a certain time, then it's a case of just shifting your evening schedule forward an hour maybe.
I may need to set myself an alarm to go to bed instead of an alarm to get up.
Believe it or not, that's what I like, especially with it sounds a little bit weird, so with technology. So you can set like screen time and bedtime reminders on the Apple iPhone and stuff like that. So you know, my so I get a little notification telling me, you know, it's bedtime now. You should start winding down over the, like, because you're due to go to bed in an hour. So yeah, you can set things like that up to prompt you. So yeah, that's something, you know, that's something I do, and it's helping me, because then, like, say the phone goes off and it brings me back the moment to turn off the telly and go start winding down. So now what I like, my little hour now before bed is you know, I prepare myself the next day. So yeah, I'm getting my kit ready. I don't know, washing my hair or whatever needs to be done for the next day, do my meal prep. So anything that's not, you know, exposed to blue light, so I can start sort of winding down a little bit. But that's me. That's what works for me. You like say, you've got to find what works for you and what helps you. But yeah, it's a case of just to get that little bit more, just shifting your evening forward an hour. So maybe, yeah, set like a little reminder for yourself to prompt you to start, you know, winding down.
I'm gonna go with that. Thank you.
And you, like, I one thing I used to do as well was just go read in bed, basically. Nothing. You don't want anything that's going to stimulate you too much. So I'm an absolute geek. So I read stuff like Harry Potter and all those sort of things. Something
that's not a geek. That's class.
There we go. So get the Harry Potter books out and do some reading for an hour before bed, so you can just, like, again, it's just taking your mind off any of those stresses you've got going on. So there's something you can just, you know, lose yourself in, really.
Thanks, Zoe.
Sue's just asked a question. How do I break the cycle of knowing that I'm going to go to bed and I'm not going to sleep?
Oh, that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good one. So, like, I just asked if she had, like, racing brain. A lot of the time, a racing brain is normally a stress response to something. The only reason why I say that is because if you consider, I guess, evolutionarily, if you are stressed or anxious or scared, which stress is, your body technically isn't going to really let you go to sleep, because you need hypervigilance for fear of threat. So a lot of the time is you haven't taken the time to unload the stress of your day. So whatever that is for you, and I know the problem is people want, I'm not saying this is you, Sue, by the way, people want really quick answers to what they're looking to achieve. But a lot of the time it's taking time for yourself in order to unload the stress of the day. So whether that's funny. I meditated for ages. It worked really well, and I slept way better, so I stopped doing it. It's typical, isn't it? Right. But so whether that's journaling, it's called brain dumping. Journaling works very well for people because it unloads the stresses of that day. It can be a bath for you. It's not alcohol, Sue. It can be a bath. It can be magnesium supplementation. It can be meditation. But you need something to dampen the stress response so that you don't have chatty brain when you go to sleep. The problem what people find with meditation, and I know Zoe practices it on and off as well, is it involves practice. You are not going to be good at it straight away, but you can use, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but it can be breathing mechanics. It can be deep breathing exercises to help lower stress response, so that when you go to bed, you're not constantly in that state of chatter or that state of fight or flight. I know it might not be the best answer you're looking for, Sue, but it is a very, very good method long term of kind of helping you with that. And that's why, because you asked me about the sleep supplement, most of those sleep supplements have stuff in them to dampen the stress response. So there'll be a lot of L-theanine in them. There'll be a lot of, sometimes they put magnesium in them. They'll put GABA in them. All these things dampen your nervous system to help you relax and get less chatter in your brain.
There you are. Seems happy with that. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, any other questions, guys? Anyone wants to ask? No, it's all quiet. I think we're good then. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up then, Greg?
No. If you guys are going to come on next week, make sure you bring a little notebook with all the stuff that you've done to change your sleep.
Oh, give you homework. Well done. That's the teacher in you, Greg.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys. So yeah, like we'll wrap it up there now. So yeah, anything else pops into your head that you want to ask us and you haven't done so tonight, then yeah, just drop us a message. I know Sam will be uploading this to YouTube and posting it in the members group. So if you want to watch it again in case you missed anything or can take something in, you might get something else from it, then yeah, rewatch it and, you know, pop a little thing in the comments if there's anything else you want to ask. And yeah, we're always here to help. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. All right. It can be tedious. It's, you know, sort of work on sleep, and it can be boring, and, you know, it can be a slow burner, but, you know, if you can dedicate the time to it, get consistent with it, you will benefit greatly from it. I do promise you that. But yeah, so the next two sessions now, we'll get a little bit more into the science next week. And then in the third week, we'll give you some more practical tips that you can use and sort of try implementing in your sort of daily routines. Okay. All right, then we'll call it a day there then. So have a good night, guys. Remember, hour before you intend to go to bed, phones off, no more electronics. So I've probably got 15 minutes before I got to get off this. Yeah, so have a good night, and we'll see you in the gym soon.
Bye, guys. Nice ones, though. See you tomorrow.
See you.